The warning sirens screamed across the mining facility as Commander Tae-min ran through the dusty corridors of Station 7. His boots hit the metal floor with heavy thuds, while emergency lights flashed red around him. Outside the reinforced windows, the dead planet Keth 7 stretched endlessly under a poisonous orange sky. "Commander, we need to move now." Hee-jin's voice crackled through his earpiece. The engineer was already at the landing pad with the rest of his team. The Vorthak fleet just dropped out of hyperspace, 12 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought. Tae-min reached the data center and began downloading critical files about Vorthak mining operations. These files could save thousands of human lives if they reached Earth safely. The download bar moved slowly across his screen while explosions echoed in the distance. 30 seconds, Hee-jin. I almost have everything. Sir, the alien ships are already powering up for departure. Commander Veltar says they cannot wait. Tae-min cursed under his breath. The Kalari Coalition had promised full support for this mission. They needed these mining records to understand how the Vorthak Empire was stripping planets of resources so quickly. Without this data, humanity would keep losing worlds to these alien invaders. The download reached 90% when the building shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling as something exploded nearby. Through the window, Tae-min could see Vorthak fighter ships screaming across the sky toward their position. "Commander Tae-min, this is Veltar." The Kalari commander's translated voice sounded cold through the comm system. "We are beginning emergency departure. Report to the landing pad immediately." 2 minutes, Veltar. The data is almost complete. Negative. We leave in 60 seconds with or without you. Tae-min looked at the screen. 95%. The files contained mining patterns from 17 different planets. Earth's military needed this information desperately. He made his choice. "Go ahead and prep for takeoff. I will be there." But, as he spoke, Vorthak soldiers burst through the facility's main entrance 3 floors below. He could hear their heavy footsteps and harsh voices echoing up through the ventilation system. They were searching for survivors. The download hit 100% just as plasma bolts began hitting the walls outside the data center. Tae-min grabbed the storage device and ran toward the emergency stairs. Behind him, the computer exploded, in sparks and flames. He reached the stairwell as Vorthak voices grew louder below. These alien soldiers were known for taking no prisoners. Their gray skin and red eyes had become symbols of terror across human space. Tae-min climbed upward instead of down, heading for the roof access. Through his earpiece, he could hear Hee-jin arguing with someone. "We cannot leave him behind. Tae-min is our commander." "The mission parameters are clear," Veltar replied. "No individual life justifies risking the entire operation. We have other humans to consider." "Those are our people talking," Boram interrupted. The medic sounded angry. "We do not abandon our own. You will follow orders or be left behind as well," Veltar said coldly. Tae-min reached the roof access door and kicked it open. The landing pad was visible across 2 buildings. 3 human ships and 5 Kalari vessels were already lifting. Off. Only 2 ships remained on the ground with engines warming up. He activated his comm unit. "This is Tae-min. I have the data and I am on the roof of Building C. Send a shuttle." "Negative," Veltar responded immediately. "Vorthak fighters are closing on our position. We cannot risk a shuttle." "Then give me 30 seconds to reach the pad myself." "We do not have 30 seconds. Tae-min looked across the gap between buildings. It was maybe 20 meters to the next rooftop, then another jump to reach the landing pad. He had made worse. Jumps during military training, but never while wearing full combat gear and carrying critical data. The sound of Vorthak soldiers breaking down doors echoed from below. They had reached his floor. "Tae-min, please." Hee-jin's voice broke with emotion. "Just get to the ship somehow." He backed up to get a running start. The orange sky above looked like fire, and the air tasted of metal and chemicals. This dead planet had once been green according to the geological surveys. The Vorthak had stripped away everything living in just 5 years. Tae-min ran toward the edge of the building and jumped. For a moment he flew through the poisonous air with the data device clutched against his chest. Then he hit the next rooftop, hard and rolled to absorb the impact. Pain shot through his left shoulder, but he kept moving. The second jump was longer. As he prepared to leap, Vorthak fighters screamed overhead, firing at the remaining ships. One Kalari vessel exploded in bright flames. The other ships were already rising into the atmosphere. All ships departing now, Beltar announced. Human Commander Taemin, if you can hear this transmission, we will report your heroic sacrifice to your people. Wait, Hyojin shouted over the comm. He is still alive, I can see him on the rooftop. The decision is final. All ships to hyperspace immediately. Taemin made the second jump and landed on the edge of the landing pad. The last ship was already 50 meters above ground and climbing fast. He could see faces in the windows looking down at him. Hyojin was pressed against the glass with tears on her face. He activated his comm one final time. Tell my family I understood the mission came first. The data is secure. He held up the storage device so they could see it. Make sure Earth gets this information. The ships disappeared into the orange sky, leaving him alone on a dead planet with hostile aliens closing in from all sides. Taemin looked around the empty landing pad and smiled grimly. He still had his sidearm, basic survival gear, and most importantly, the mining data that could save human worlds. The Vorthak thought they had won by stranding him here. They were about to learn that leaving a human behind was often their first mistake, not their last victory. As enemy soldiers surrounded the landing pad, Taemin melted back into the shadows of the mining facility. His real mission was just beginning. 6 months had passed since they left Taemin on Keth 7. The abandoned mining station now looked completely different. Steel plates covered broken windows, and new pipes carried clean water through corridors that once echoed with emptiness. What had been a dead facility was now a fortress built for one man to survive against impossible odds. Taemin stood in his workshop, welding together pieces of salvaged metal. His beard had grown long and his clothes were patched in dozens of places, but his eyes still burned with determination. On his workbench sat the data device he had risked everything to save. It remained sealed and protected, waiting for the day he could deliver it to Earth. The atmospheric processor hummed quietly in the corner. Taemin had built it from mining equipment and parts from destroyed Vorthak fighters. It turned the poisonous orange air into something he could breathe, at least inside the sealed sections of the station. Outside, the planet remained as deadly as ever. A soft chime from his security system made him look up. 3 crystal spiders were approaching the main entrance. These creatures were the size of dogs with bodies made of living rock and legs like sharp glass. When he first arrived, they had tried to kill him daily. Now they brought him gifts of rare metals in exchange for the warmth of his generator. "Hello, friends," Taemin said as he opened the reinforced door. The lead crystal spider dropped a chunk of pure copper at his feet and made a sound like wind chimes. "Thank you. This will help with the new power cables." The creatures had learned to trust him after he saved one from a collapsed tunnel. They seemed to understand that he was different from the Vorthak soldiers who had hunted them for sport. Taemin had even given them names: Spark, Shine, and Glow. Deep below the station, in caverns he had discovered by accident, rows of green plants grew under artificial lights. His hydroponic garden was small but produced enough food to keep him alive. Tomatoes, potatoes, and soybeans grew in nutrient solutions he made from processed rock and organic waste. The sight of green life on this dead world never failed to make him smile. Meanwhile, across the galaxy in human space, Admiral So Young sat in her office on Luna Station reading reports that made her sick with anger. The Kalari Coalition continued to insist that any rescue mission to Keth 7 would be suicide. They claimed their sensors showed no human life signs on the planet. "Ma'am," her aide Jin Woo entered carrying another stack of papers. "The families are demanding answers again. Commander Taemin's sister Haya Young has organized another protest outside the embassy." So Young rubbed her temples. She had tried 3 times to get approval for a rescue mission. Each time the Kalari Coalition blocked it, saying they could not risk more lives for someone who was certainly dead. The political pressure was enormous, but her hands were tied by treaty obligations. What about the volunteer mission that Captain Minho proposed? Still under review. The Defense Council says we cannot afford to lose our best experimental ship on what might be a recovery mission for remains. Remains, So Young repeated bitterly. They do not know Taimin like we do. Back, on Keth 7, Taimin was proving the Admiral right. He had not only survived but learned to thrive in conditions that would kill most living beings. His daily routine included checking atmospheric readings, tending his garden, maintaining his defenses, and exploring the ancient ruins he had discovered beneath the planet's surface. The ruins were the most interesting discovery of all. Deep underground, past layers of Vorthak mining damage, he had found chambers carved from solid stone. The walls were covered with symbols that seemed to move in the light, and the air down there was somehow cleaner than anywhere else on the planet. In the largest chamber, Taimin had found machines that still hummed with power after thousands of years. They were beautiful, made of materials he could not identify, and they seemed to respond to his presence. When he placed his hand on certain panels, lights would dance across the walls like aurora. He called the vanished builders the Archeon and spent hours each day trying to understand their technology. The machines seemed connected to the planet itself, monitoring things like seismic activity, atmospheric composition, and even the movement of the crystal spiders on the surface. Most importantly, the Archeon machines were still trying to heal the planet. Taimin could see data streams showing attempts to restore atmospheric balance and regenerate the soil. The Vorthak mining had damaged these systems, but they kept working despite the destruction above. One evening, as Taimin studied the alien symbols by lamplight, his communication system activated. For a moment his heart raced, thinking rescue had finally come. Instead, he heard Vorthak voices discussing plans to return to Keth 7. The mining surveys were incomplete, one voice said in their harsh language. Taimin had learned enough of their speech to understand basic conversations. There are rare Earth deposits in the deep caverns that we missed. What about the human survivor reports? False data. Our spy networks confirm the human died months ago. The planet is secure for renewed operations. Taimin smiled grimly as he listened. The Vorthak were coming back, but they had no idea what they would find. He was no longer the desperate soldier they had left behind. He was something new, something adapted to this dead world and allied with its remaining life. He looked around his workshop at the weapons he had built, the defenses he had prepared, and the crystal spider allies who visited him daily. Most importantly, he thought about the Archeon machines deep below, still working to restore their world after millennia of patience. When the Vorthak returned expecting to find a corpse, they would instead discover that leaving a human alone on a dead planet had given that human time to make the planet his own. Taimin was no longer just surviving. He was preparing for war. The data device sat on his desk, still waiting to be delivered to Earth. But now it contained more than just mining records. Taimin had added everything he learned about Archeon technology, Vorthak weaknesses, and the true nature of Keth 7. They had left him here to die. Instead, they had given him the greatest opportunity of his life. 1 year after his abandonment, Taimin found the crashed ship half buried in a canyon 20 kilometers from his station. The vessel was small and badly damaged, with Vorthak markings on its hull. Smoke still rose from its engines, meaning the crash was recent. His crystal spider friends had led him to the wreckage, chittering nervously as they approached. Inside the ship, Taimin found her unconscious and bleeding. She was young for a Vorthak, maybe 20 in human years, with the typical gray skin and red eyes of her species. But something was different about her. She wore simple clothing instead of military armor, and her hands were soft like an engineer's rather than calloused like a soldier's. Taimin had every reason to leave her there to die. The Vorthak had destroyed human worlds and enslaved entire populations. They had left him stranded on this dead planet to die slowly and alone. But as he looked at her injured form, he remembered his training as a soldier and his duty as a human being. He carried her back to his station. When she woke up 3 days later, Kira immediately tried to run. She spoke rapidly in Vorthak, her eyes wide with fear. Timon held up his empty hands and spoke slowly in her language. You are safe. I am not going to hurt you. You are human, she whispered, staring at him like he was a monster from children's stories. Humans kill everything they touch. Funny, Taemin said calmly. That is exactly what we say about your people. Over the following weeks, they learned to communicate and eventually to trust each other. Kira was indeed an engineer, one who had tried to flee the Vorthak Empire after refusing to build weapons that would be used against civilian populations. Her own people had branded her a traitor and hunted her across the galaxy. I stole a ship and ran, she explained one evening as they shared a meal of vegetables from his garden. I just wanted to find somewhere peaceful to hide. I never expected to crash on a world with a human survivor. This planet chose you, Taemin said, watching Spark and Shine play with a piece of metal near the door. The same way it chose me. Kira had skills that complemented his own. While Taemin was good with mechanical systems, she understood energy flow and power distribution. Together, they began to unlock secrets of the Archeon technology that had puzzled him for months. These machines are not just monitoring the planet, Kira said as they stood in the main chamber deep underground. They are trying to heal it. Look at these patterns. She pointed to streams of light flowing through crystalline conduits in the walls. The patterns pulsed like a heartbeat, carrying energy to different parts of the planet's underground network. The Vorthak mining broke the connections, Taemin realized. That is why the terraforming stopped working. We could fix it, Kira said quietly. If we had enough time and materials, we could restore the entire system. This planet could be green again. But time was something they did not have. Seismic readings showed that Keth 7 was becoming increasingly unstable. The damaged Archeon systems were failing faster than they could repair themselves, and the planet's core was beginning to destabilize. Meanwhile, in human space, Captain Minho had finally gotten approval for his rescue mission. The stubborn officer had spent months arguing with superiors and gathering volunteers for what everyone expected to be a recovery mission. We know Commander Taemin is dead, Admiral So Young said as she signed the authorization papers. But we cannot abandon our people even to recover their remains. Take the Indomitable and bring him home. Minho assembled his team carefully. Navigator Da-Un had served with Taemin before and refused to believe he was dead. Weapons specialist Wu Jin wanted revenge against the aliens who had abandoned a human. Communications expert Yuna had lost her brother to Vorthak raiders and saw this as a chance to strike back. They stole the experimental ship Indomitable from its testing facility on Mars. The vessel was fast and heavily armed, designed for deep space reconnaissance. If Taemin was somehow still alive, they would need every advantage to extract him from a hostile planet. The journey to Keth 7 would take 6 weeks at maximum speed. On Keth 7, Taemin and Kira worked desperately to stabilize the failing planetary systems. The crystal spiders had grown larger and more intelligent over the past year, responding to the Archeon energy flowing through the underground networks. They helped carry materials and even seemed to understand basic engineering concepts. The planet is alive, Kira said one day as they watched the creatures work together to move a heavy component. Not like a plant or animal, but alive in a different way. The Archeon built these systems to give worlds consciousness. And the Vorthak Empire has been killing planets for resources, Taemin replied grimly. No wonder you tried to run from them. Their work was interrupted when long-range sensors detected ships approaching the system. Not just any ships, but a massive Vorthak battle fleet led by the dreadnought destroyer of worlds. War Master Drex commanded that vessel, and he was known throughout the galaxy for his cruelty. They are not here for mining this time, Kira said, reading the sensor data with growing fear. Drex only brings the destroyer when he plans to destroy entire worlds. What changed? Someone told them about the Archeon technology. If the Empire learns they can restore dead planets, they will want this system for themselves. Taemin looked at his friend and ally, this young Vorthak engineer who had become family to him over the past months. He thought about his crystal spider companions and the green plants growing in his garden. Most importantly, He thought about the sleeping consciousness of Keth-7 itself, slowly awakening after millennia of damage. "Then we stop them," he said simply. "How can two people and some crystal creatures fight a battle fleet?" Taemin smiled and gestured toward the Archeon machines humming with ancient power around them. "We are not just two people anymore. We have an entire planet as our ally." The rescue mission and the invasion fleet were both approaching Keth-7, unaware that the man they thought was dead had spent a year learning to think like the ancient Archeon. He was no longer just surviving on a dead planet. He had become its guardian, and he was ready to prove that leaving a human behind was the worst mistake his enemies could make. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace first, its sleek hull gleaming against the orange sky of Keth-7. Captain Minho stood on the bridge with his crew, staring at the planet where their friend had been abandoned 2 years ago. Long range. Scanners showed no signs of human life, just the same dead world they expected to find. "Dayun, take us into low orbit," Minho ordered. "Yuna, start scanning for any trace of Commander Taemin or his equipment." "Sir," Woojin called from the weapons station, "I am reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. These readings do not match Vorthak mining equipment." Before anyone could respond, a second fleet emerged from hyperspace. 12 heavy cruisers and the massive dreadnought destroyer of worlds appeared like dark thunderclouds against the stars. War Master Drex had arrived with enough firepower to crack a planet in half. "Human vessel," Drex's voice boomed across all communication channels. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. This system now belongs to the Vorthak Empire." Minho gripped his command chair. The Indomitable was fast and well armed, but it stood no chance against an entire battle fleet. "This is Captain Minho of the Terran Defense Force. We are here on a rescue mission for our people. We have no quarrel with your empire. There are no humans left alive on this world. Depart now, or join your dead friend." Deep underground on Keth-7, Taemin and Kira watched the confrontation through sensors connected to the Archeon network. The ancient machines had given them awareness that extended far beyond the planet's surface. They could feel the ships in orbit like insects, crawling on their skin. "Your people came for you," Kira said softly. "Even after 2 years, they did not forget." "Humans do not abandon our own," Taemin replied. He placed his hands on the main control panel, feeling the planet's consciousness respond to his touch. But they are walking into a trap they cannot win. Around them, crystal spiders gathered in the hundreds. Over 2 years, they had evolved from simple creatures into something approaching intelligence. They understood that their human guardian was preparing for battle, and they were ready to fight beside him. "Drex will not listen to reason," Kira warned. "He destroys first and asks questions later. If your friends try to help you, he will kill them all. Then we help them instead." Taemin closed his eyes and reached out through the Archeon network. He could feel every machine, every power conduit, every living crystal creature across the entire planet. Keth-7 was no longer just his home. It had become an extension of his will. In orbit, the standoff continued. Minho was trying to negotiate when his sensors detected something impossible. Energy readings from the planet's surface were spiking beyond measurement. Whatever was happening down there was bigger than anything in their databases. "Captain," Yuna called out with excitement in her voice, "I am receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It is on Terran military frequencies." "Put it through." The voice that came through their speakers was familiar but changed. Older, calmer, carrying an authority that had not been there before. "Captain Minho, this is Commander Taemin. Welcome to Keth-7." The bridge fell silent. Dayun gasped, and Woojin dropped his stylus. Their friend was alive after 2 years on a dead planet. "Taemin," Minho whispered, then louder. "Commander, report your status. Are you injured? Do you need immediate extraction?" "Negative on extraction, Captain. I have work to finish here. First, you might want to move your ship to a safe distance. Things are about to get interesting." War Master Drex had been listening to the exchange with growing anger. A human had survived on Keth-7 for 2 years, and now more humans had come. To rescue him, this was unacceptable. "All ships begin orbital bombardment," Destroy everything on the planet's surface. Plasma cannons erupted from 12 warships simultaneously. Beams of superheated energy lanced down toward the planet, carrying enough power to melt mountains. The first wave of fire struck the mining facility where Taimin had once hidden from Borthak soldiers. The explosion should have ended everything. Instead, something impossible happened. The planet fought back. Massive crystal formations erupted from the ground around the impact sites, absorbing and redirecting the plasma energy. The beams that should have carved craters instead fed power into the Archeon network spreading beneath the planet's surface. Impossible, Drex snarled. Double the bombardment. Use the main guns. More plasma fire rained down, but now the planet was ready. Ancient atmospheric processors came online, creating electromagnetic pulses that disrupted targeting systems. Seismic charges placed by Taimin over months of preparation triggered coordinated earthquakes that sent shockwaves through space itself. But the most terrifying sight was the crystal spiders. Thousands of them emerged from underground tunnels, but they were no longer the small creatures Taimin had first befriended. They had grown to the size of buildings, their crystalline bodies pulsing with Archeon energy. They moved in perfect coordination like cells in a vast organism. What has he done? Tayun whispered from the Indomitable's bridge. Taimin's voice came through their speakers again, still calm but carrying undertones of immense power. I learned to listen to the planet. Keth 7 was never dead. It was just sleeping, waiting for someone to help it wake up. The largest crystal spider, a creature Taimin had named Spark years ago, climbed onto a mountain peak and began to glow. The light spread through crystalline veins in the rock, creating a network that covered half the continent. When the network activated, it generated a gravity pulse that caught 3 Vorthak cruisers and pulled them down toward the surface. All ships retreat, Drex commanded as his fleet began to break formation. Retreat to safe distance. But Taimin was not finished. 2 years of survival had taught him patience and planning. Every system on Keth 7 was now under his control, from the atmospheric processors to the seismic charges he had placed in strategic locations across the planet. Drex, Taimin's voice echoed across all communication channels. You made a mistake when you left me here. You gave me time to make friends. The gravity pulse intensified, dragging 2 more ships toward the planet's surface. One cruiser managed to escape, but the other crashed into the crystalline formations that had grown to catch it. The impact sent tremors through space that could be felt by every ship in the system. On the bridge of the Destroyer of Worlds, Warmaster Drex stared at the tactical display in disbelief. A single human and a dead planet were destroying his fleet. It was impossible, but it was happening. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the planet's gravity well is still expanding. If we do not retreat immediately, we will lose the entire fleet. Drex looked at the world below, where crystal formations now covered most of the visible surface and energy patterns danced through the atmosphere like living lightning. The human they had abandoned had turned their trap into his weapon. Full retreat, he ordered through gritted teeth. But mark this system. We will return with a larger fleet. As the surviving Vorthak ships fled into hyperspace, Taimin stood, in the Archeon control chamber with Kira beside him, and crystal spiders surrounding them both. His hands remained on the control panel, feeling the planet's satisfaction as its enemies retreated. They will come back, Kira warned. Let them, Taimin replied. Keth 7 will be ready. 3 months after the battle, Captain Minho stood on the observation deck of the newly built research station on Keth 7, watching something that should have been impossible. Green grass covered the hillsides where crystal formations had once dominated the landscape. Small trees were beginning to grow near streams of clean water that flowed from underground springs. The planet was healing itself. It is beautiful, Da-Un said as she joined him at the window. I still cannot believe this is the same dead world we found when we arrived. Below them, crystal spiders the size of houses worked alongside human engineers to build new facilities. The creatures had learned to communicate through patterns of light and sound, creating a partnership that amazed scientists from across human space. They were no longer just alien animals but genuine partners in the planet's restoration. In the main research facility, Taimin reviewed reports from teams studying Archeon technology. He looked different now, calmer and more confident than the desperate soldier who had been abandoned here years ago. His hair was longer and streaked with premature gray, but his eyes held a wisdom that came from learning to think like a planet. The atmospheric processors are working at 80% efficiency, he told the assembled scientists. Another 6 months and we will have a breathable atmosphere across the entire northern continent. Kira stood beside him, now serving as chief engineer for the restoration project. The young Vorthak had become something of a celebrity among human researchers, the first of her species to openly work alongside humans as an equal partner. The seismic stabilizers are also functioning well, she added. The planet's core temperature has dropped to safe levels. Keth-7 should be stable for thousands of years. But the real change was happening far beyond the planet's surface. The story of Taimin's survival and victory had spread across the galaxy. Through news broadcasts, military reports, and personal accounts from the rescue team, reporter Yunji had interviewed everyone involved and published a series of articles that became required reading in military academies. They left him on a dead planet, became more than just a news story. It became a rallying cry for human determination, and a warning to anyone who thought humans could be easily discarded. On Luna Station, Admiral So Young met with representatives from the Kalari Coalition, who had come to apologize for their abandonment of Taimin. The alien diplomats looked uncomfortable as they tried to explain their actions. "We believed the situation was hopeless," Commander Veltar said through his translator device. "Our tactical analysis showed no possibility of survival on Keth-7. Your tactical analysis did not account for human stubbornness," So Young replied coldly. "Commander Taimin did not just survive. He thrived. He turned your abandoned soldier into the most dangerous individual in this sector of space." The Kalari delegation shifted nervously. They had seen the reports of the battle, watched recordings of an entire Vorthak battle fleet fleeing from one human and his planetary allies. It had changed their understanding of what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. "We wish to make amends," Veltar continued. "The Coalition offers full support for the Keth-7 restoration project. We also request permission to study Archeon technology alongside human researchers. That decision belongs to Commander Taimin," So Young said. "He is the guardian of Keth-7 now. If you want to study his planet, you ask him directly." Back on Keth-7, Taimin was indeed being approached by representatives from dozens of species. The Archeon technology he had unlocked offered solutions to environmental problems across the galaxy. Dead worlds could be restored, damaged ecosystems could be healed, and the knowledge could help prevent future ecological disasters. But more importantly, the political balance of power had shifted. Species that had once seen humans as useful, but expendable, now understood that underestimating human persistence was a dangerous mistake. "We have requests for cooperation from 43 different governments," Yuna reported during the weekly briefing. "Everyone wants to learn how to wake up sleeping planets, and everyone wants to make sure they never leave a human stranded again," Wu Jin added with a grin. "The Vorthak Empire has issued new protocols specifically about not abandoning human personnel." Taimin smiled at that. He had received reports that War Master Drex had been demoted after losing half his fleet to a single human and a dead planet. The story had become a cautionary tale throughout Vorthak space about the dangers of leaving enemies alive. In the Archeon control chamber deep underground, Taimin placed his hands on the main console and felt the planet's contentment. Keth-7 was no longer fighting for survival. It was growing, learning, becoming something new with each passing day. Spark approached him, the massive crystal spider moving with surprising grace despite her size. She had become the unofficial leader of her species, the bridge between human thinking and crystalline consciousness. When she touched the console with one crystal leg, her thoughts merged with his. Through her, he could feel the network of restored worlds that was slowly spreading across this part of the galaxy. Other planets were beginning to wake up, responding to signals broadcast from Keth-7. The Archeon legacy was returning to life after millennia of sleep. "What are you thinking about?" Kira asked as she entered the chamber. "The future," Taimin replied. 3 years ago, I was just a soldier following orders. Now I am the guardian of a living world and teacher to the next generation of planetary healers. Do you ever regret staying behind that day? You could have tried harder to reach the ships. Taman looked around the chamber at the humming machines, the crystal spiders working in harmony with human technicians, and the displays showing green life spreading across a world that had been dead for generations. They thought leaving me here was my end, he said finally. Instead, they gave humanity its greatest beginning. Kira nodded, understanding. Your people do not just survive the impossible. You make it look easy. That is what makes us dangerous, Taman agreed. We refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible. Outside, the sun set over a world transformed, where poisonous orange skies had once dominated. Clean blue atmosphere now supported the first clouds seen on Keth 7 in thousands of years. The restoration was far from complete, but the progress was undeniable. In military academies across human space, young officers studied the Battle of Keth 7 and learned about the importance of never leaving anyone behind. The story had become legendary, but the lesson was practical. Humans at their most dangerous were humans with nothing left to lose and time to prepare. Taman's stand, as historians now called it, had proved that leaving a human for dead might be the worst strategic mistake any enemy could make. The galaxy had taken notice, and the balance of power would never be the same. The legend was complete, but the Guardian's work was just beginning.